The smartwatch buzzed against my wrist at 2:47 a.m. I'd forgotten the thing even existed until Chloe knocked it off the nightstand reaching for her phone. The screen lit up with a notification that made my stomach just drop. It was from someone named Damon. The message read, "Can't wait to feel you again tomorrow. Delete this." My wife of 8 years was snoring right beside me. Her blonde hair fanned out on the pillow like some kind of angel. She looked beautiful, even in sleep, even while she was betraying me. I didn't wake her. I just sat in our bathroom for a full hour, scrolling through months of their messages. Each one felt like a knife twisting in my gut. This Damon Rivers was 23 years old, the pastor's son, the golden boy of our church. I had even helped the kid move furniture into his apartment 6 months ago. One of Chloe's messages read, "Nate's working late again." His reply was, "His loss is my gain. You're so much more mature than my husband." Another one of hers said, "Age is just a number when hearts connect spiritually." Spiritual? That was a sick joke. The worst part was they were meeting at the youth retreat center, the same place I'd spent 3 weekends fixing the air conditioning for free because I believed in giving back to the church. I thought we were all family. I didn't delete a thing. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to a cloud account Chloe knew nothing about. When she woke up, I was in the kitchen making coffee like it was any other day. "Morning, beautiful," I said, and I even kissed her forehead. She smelled like her vanilla body wash and a whole lot of lies. "You're up early," she yawned, stretching in that way that used to drive me crazy. Now it just made me feel sick. I told her I couldn't sleep, that I had a big job with a shot HVAC system at Henderson's. She just said, "That's nice, honey." She wasn't even listening. She was already reaching for her phone, probably checking for a message from her boy toy. I watched her face change when she realized her smartwatch was gone. "Have you seen my old watch? The silver one?" she asked, her voice a little too high. I played dumb, suggesting it was in her jewelry box. "I thought I left it on the nightstand," she said, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. I told her I'd help her look later and that I had to get to work. She just nodded, completely distracted, probably wondering if I'd seen anything. Smart girl, my Chloe. Too bad she wasn't smart enough. At work, I couldn't focus. My partner, Luis, noticed right away. "You look like heck, man." "What's eating you?" he asked. I tried to brush him off, but Luis was 52, built like a boxer, and had zero patience for lies. "Talk," he said, so I did. I showed him the screenshots and watched his face go from disbelief to pure fury, and then to this cold, calculating look I hadn't seen since someone tried to rob his bar years ago. "You going to confront her?" he asked. I told him not yet. I needed to be smart about it. She'd already got half the church thinking I was a workaholic who neglected her. If I came out swinging, I'd just look like the jealous husband having a breakdown. Luis nodded slowly and asked, "So what's the play?" I told him I didn't know yet, but I wasn't going down without a fight. That afternoon, I stopped by the church to drop off some borrowed tools. Pastor Rivers was in his office with the door open, reviewing his sermon. "Nate, good to see you, son," he said. We made small talk about the HVAC business, and then he mentioned he hadn't seen much of Chloe at evening services lately. I told him she'd been working with Damon on the youth mentorship program, that she was very dedicated to it. Something flickered across his face for just a second, but I caught it. He said, "Yes, Damon mentioned that. Wonderful that our young people are so committed to spiritual growth." I looked him right in the eye and said, "Your son's a good kid. Mature for his age indeed, though sometimes I worry he takes on too much responsibility." The pastor's smile tightened. Interesting. Very interesting. That evening, Chloe was unusually attentive. She made my favorite pot roast and wore the blue dress I loved. "Over wine," she said. "I've been thinking. Maybe we should take a vacation. Just the two of us. Remember how we used to talk about going to Ireland?" I played along, saying it sounded nice and asking when she was thinking. "Soon," she said. "Maybe next month. I could take time off from the mentorship program." I acted surprised. "I thought that was really important to you?" Her smile faltered for just a second. "It is, but our marriage is more important." I reached across the table, took her hand, and told her I appreciated that. She squeezed back and relief just flooded her features. She thought her little performance had worked. She thought she was safe. After dinner, she excused herself to take a shower. The second I heard the water running, I knew I had maybe 15 minutes. Her purse was on the kitchen counter. Inside, I found what I was looking for: a second phone, a cheap prepaid model, probably paid for with cash. The messages on this one were even worse. Explicit plans for tomorrow at the youth retreat center again at 2 p.m. during his father's hospital visits. I memorized every detail and put the phone back exactly where I found it. She came down 20 minutes later in a silk nightgown, her hair damp, smelling like that expensive shampoo she saved for special occasions. "Come to bed," she whispered, taking my hand. I followed her upstairs and played the part of the grateful husband. But the whole time, all I could think about was how she'd whispered his name in those text messages. The next morning, I called in sick. I parked behind the auto parts store across from the retreat center and waited. Damon's red Camaro pulled up right on time at 1:55 p.m. Chloe arrived 10 minutes later in our Honda Civic, the one with the blessed sticker on the bumper. Watching her walk toward that building, I felt something die inside my chest. It wasn't love. That was already gone. This was the last stupid hope that maybe I'd misunderstood everything. They disappeared inside. I knew the layout. There was a small apartment on the second floor. That's where they'd be. I waited 2 hours, long enough to be sure, long enough to make my own plans. That evening, she had a story ready about a long youth group meeting, about helping Damon with college applications. "Poor kid," I said, not looking up from my beer. "Must be tough having that much responsibility at his age." She said, "He's very mature. More mature than most men his age. Or men my age." Her laugh sounded forced. "Don't be silly, honey," she said. "You're plenty mature." I looked at her and said, "I try to be. Speaking of which, I was thinking about volunteering more at the church. Maybe helping with that mentorship program." Her wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. That's sweet of you, but I think we have enough volunteers." I pressed on, suggesting I could help with maintenance, that the heating system was acting up. I told her I'd already mentioned it to Pastor Rivers. The color drained from her face. "You talked to Pastor Rivers?" she asked, her voice tight. "Just about the HVAC system. Why?" She had no reason, of course. She just liked keeping her volunteer work separate from my work. I knew exactly how it was. The next day, I did something I'd never done in 8 years of marriage. I hired a private investigator. Helen Morrison was 65, gray-haired, and looked like someone's sweet grandmother. She charged $200 a day and guaranteed results. "Cheating spouse?" she asked, matter of fact. I showed her the texts. She photographed each screenshot with professional efficiency. "This is good, very good. But judges like pictures and videos. Text can be explained away." I asked how long it would take. "If they're as careless as these messages suggest, a week, maybe 2. The cost was $3,000. Money we didn't have. Money for our car's new transmission. But some things were worth going into debt for. That Sunday I sat in church like nothing was wrong. Chloe beside me singing hymns. Damon in the front row with his father's hand on his shoulder. Pastor Rivers preached about forgiveness. The irony was so thick you could taste it. After the service, I made a point of talking to Veronica Walsh, the biggest gossip in the congregation. I told her I was thinking of joining the youth ministry to support Chloe. Veronica's eyes lit up. "That's so sweet. She and Damon make such a good team. They're practically joined at the hip these days." She leaned in closer. "Some people think maybe she's a little too involved. You know how church people talk. My blood went cold. If people were already talking, I wasn't the only one who'd noticed." That afternoon, Helen called. "I've got what you need. Already." She had photos of them entering and leaving the retreat center, timestamps, and she'd gotten lucky. A clear shot of them kissing in the parking lot. The photos were damning. I asked her what my next move was. "That depends," she said. "You want to confront them? File for divorce? What's your endgame?" I thought about it. I told her I wanted them to know I knew, but I wanted to control how it happened. "Smart," she said. "Keep the element of surprise. In the meantime, document everything." That night, Chloe was late. Her excuse was youth group again, but I could smell Damon's cologne on her clothes. She was watching me all evening like she was seeing me for the first time, like maybe her boring husband wasn't as stupid as she thought. The next week, I started playing church politics. I went to Anthony Reeves, the eldest deacon, a sharp 73-year-old who knew everything that happened. I expressed concern about the mentorship program, about how much time Chloe and Damon were spending alone, and how people were starting to talk. Anthony's pen stopped moving. What kind of talk? He asked. I played innocent, just suggesting that maybe it looked inappropriate. Anthony leaned back, his expression grave. That's very thoughtful of you, Nate, and probably wise. I'll speak to Pastor Rivers. My next stop was the retreat center itself. I had a key. In the upstairs apartment, I found a condom wrapper and a wine bottle in the trash. I photographed them with timestamps. Then I adjusted the security camera angle for a better view of the door. If they came back, I'd have them on video. Helen called with an update later that week. They'd met again, but they seemed agitated, arguing about something. The pressure was getting to them. That evening, when I mentioned that Anthony had asked about the mentorship program, Chloe nearly choked on her wine. She was terrified I knew something. Friday night, she said she was going out with the girls from church. I knew better. I waited an hour, then drove to the retreat center. Damon's Camaro was parked out back. I called Helen, and she arrived 20 minutes later with her camera. We waited. The lights went out in the apartment around 11:30. Damon came out first, looking around carefully. Chloe followed 10 minutes later, fixing her hair. Helen's camera caught it all. Got it, she whispered. Clear shots of both of them leaving. Timestamps show they were in there together for over 3 hours. It was more than enough. The next morning, Chloe slept until noon. When she came down, she looked exhausted and gave me some story about a long movie and Veronica talking too much. I asked what movie, and she hesitated for just a heartbeat. I knew she was lying. I let her think she'd fooled me one more time. That afternoon, I made my move. I suggested we have people over for dinner, her parents, Pastor Rivers, and his family. Maybe some people from church, I said. Pastor Rivers and his family? Damon, too. She nearly dropped her coffee mug. She tried every excuse to get out of it, but I held firm. I lied and said I'd already mentioned it to her mom, that she was excited. Chloe was trapped. Okay, she said finally, her voice weak. But keep it small. I spent the week planning every detail of that dinner party. Chloe grew more nervous by the day, but I held firm. The night of the dinner, our guests arrived. Chloe's parents, Pastor Rivers and his quiet wife, Sarah, and finally Damon, dressed like he was going to a job interview, looking nervous. Good. I'd arranged the seating strategically. The conversation started normally, but I waited until everyone was relaxed. Then I looked at Damon and said, Chloe tells me you two have been working very closely. I mentioned the retreat center, how I knew it well from doing the HVAC work. Then I dropped the bomb. Speaking of which, I noticed the security system might need some updates. I was reviewing the footage last week. Damon choked on his wine. Chloe went pale. Footage? Pastor Rivers asked, his voice sharp. I played it cool, saying it was just routine, but I'd noticed a lot of activity. People coming and going at all hours. I looked right at Damon. I'm sure you've seen the cameras during your meetings there. He stammered a yes. I finished with, good thing they're there. Never know when you might need evidence of what really happened. The silence at the table was deafening. After dinner, I offered to show Damon my workshop. In the garage, I turned to him. I like to fix things, I said. When something's broken, I figure out what went wrong and I make it right. He tried to play dumb, but I was done. I'm not implying anything. I'm telling you straight up. I know about you and my wife. He denied it. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of Helen's photos. Him and Chloe kissing, clear as day. His face went white. What do you want? He whispered. I told him I wanted him to end it tonight, transfer to another church, another city, and stay away from my wife. If he didn't, the photos would go to his father, the church board, everyone. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he nodded. Okay, I'll end it. We went back inside. The party broke up soon after. Once everyone was gone, Chloe and I cleaned up in silence. I waited until we were loading the dishwasher. I know, I said quietly. She froze, a wine glass in her hand. Know what? About you and Damon, I've known for weeks. The glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. She started to cry, big, dramatic tears, saying it just happened, that it didn't mean anything, that she loved me. I told her it meant everything. It meant our marriage was over. She begged for counseling to talk to Pastor Rivers. I asked if she really wanted to talk to him about cheating with his son in a church building. She flinched. I told her I'd already talked to Damon, that he was ending it and leaving town. She said I couldn't make those decisions for us. Watch me, I said. I showed her the photo. Her face crumpled. She asked what I was going to do. I told her she had two choices: make this easy or make it hard. But either way, it was over. I told her to pack a bag and go stay with her parents. She nodded, tears streaming, and went upstairs to pack. As she left the next morning, I felt the house change. It was quieter but cleaner, like stale air had been let out. I took the week off work to think about what I actually wanted. For 8 years, I'd defined myself through Chloe. Now I had to figure out who I was without her. Helen called with updates. Damon had bought a bus ticket to Denver. But Chloe had been trying to hire Helen to investigate me, spreading a narrative that I was cold and controlling, that she was just seeking emotional support. The battle for the truth was on. I met with the key people: Anthony, the deacon, my boss Mike, and finally Chloe's father Jim. I showed them the evidence. They were shocked but supportive. They knew the kind of man I was. The pressure mounted. Chloe, realizing her lies weren't working, showed up at the church having a breakdown. She wanted to make a public confession to the entire congregation. Pastor Rivers called me. I went to the sanctuary and found her a wreck. She said she couldn't live with the guilt anymore, that she had to tell the truth. I told her she didn't have to do this, that it would destroy her socially. She said she knew, but she had to do it because she was sorry and because I deserved the truth. The following Sunday, the church was packed. During the service, Pastor Rivers announced that a member of the congregation had asked to speak. Chloe walked to the front, wearing a simple black dress, her face pale. "My name is Chloe Collins," she began, her voice shaking but clear. "I'm here today to confess my sins before God and before all of you." She confessed to the affair with Damon, to the lies she told about me, and said that I was a good man who didn't deserve any of it. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was just asking us to know the truth. She announced she was leaving town to start over. The sanctuary was completely silent. She finished by looking directly at me and saying, "You are not responsible for what I did. That's on me. All of it." I left before anyone could talk to me. That evening, she called me. "Thank you for being there," she said. She asked if we were okay. I thought about it. "We're going to be okay," I said finally. Both of us, separately. 3 months later, the divorce was final. I heard she moved to Portland. Damon stayed in Colorado. As for me, I kept working, kept moving forward. 6 months later, I was installing a furnace for a woman named Sarah. She offered me coffee, said she'd heard about what happened at the church, and that how I handled it took a lot of strength. We talked for an hour. When I left, she asked if I'd like to have dinner sometime. I looked at her with her warm smile and honest eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of something new. "I'd like that very much," I said. My marriage was over, but my story wasn't. And finally, that felt like enough.